Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that...
Hey, Soul, happy Valentine's Day.
Hey, thanks, man. What do you got there?
It's a gift from me to you.
Cool. It's a Taliesin pillow.
A Taliesin body pillow. They say if you sleep with it, you'll grow more facial hair.
That's horrifying.
I hope you like it, and don't turn it over. It's slightly used.
Wait, what the f***?
Knowledge is power. Ha ha ha.
This and every show on the channel is brought to you by the quickly scrolling marquee that I should really revamp soon. But there are sponsors, including Josh, who's stepping it up, and the newest additions to the family, Lenlock, Aramis, and Anders. Let's start with more of the World First Race aftermath. At least 5 guilds have now cleared Mythic N'Zoth, with Complexity Limit, Method, and Pieces taking the top 3 spots. So far, it looks like once again, the Hall of Fame on the Horde side is going to fill up much faster than the Alliance side. I don't know. Maybe we'll see them get a bonus on corruption gear dropping, eh? Wink wink nudge nudge. Just the other day, the folks over at Warcraft Radio sat down with WoW game director and man who obviously wants ear scratches from the Lich King, Ian Hazzikostas. In this candid interview, Ian shared the team's perspective on the World First Race, 8.3 in general, along with other topics that you'll cherry pick to start an angry thread, while also not talking about the things that you wish he did, prompting an angry thread. A link to the interview is provided below, and I do suggest that you give it a listen. It's a little bit long, but it's short enough that you can fully clear Blackwing Lair in WoW Classic before it's over. I'll go over the good parts. The idea of opening up new raids simultaneously in an effort to make the race to World First more even is not something that Blizzard is interested in doing.
Well, GG, I guess Method's gonna move to Canada.
The reason why is best explained by Ian himself, so let's cut to a clip from the interview and we'll try to get into this a little bit more.
Even Mythic difficulty, which is, okay, this is the elite difficulty in our raid structure, there are still tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands, jumping into that the first week. And the reason why our raid resets are staggered is simply time zones, right? No one wants a raid to reset at 8 p.m. in the evening in their local time and have to plan around that. That would be utterly strange. And so when you look at the options for how we would deliver this, it's either we delay North America until, Europe and Asia also reach their regular times, right. At which point does North America now just have a 5-day raid week instead of a 7-day raid week? If that's the case, that's not fair to them. If we shift out the whole thing, well, again, then what does that do to all the other players who just have their regular expectations of wanting to jump in and raid on a regular schedule that is calibrated to the time zones of each respective region? And I think if we do our job right, in the long run, the time zone difference doesn't matter.
So imagine a World of Warcraft with a maintenance schedule like this, where realms on North America reset at 3 p.m., Europe at midnight. That's what some fans are trying to ask for the sake of fairness, for the sake of World First. A population who was arguably the smallest segment of WoW players right next to pet battlers, or even less easy to understand. Think of the maintenance or patch schedule, think of it staying the same, except for the week that Mythic raids open up, where the raid opens up at the same time worldwide, sure, but North American realms have the shortest raid week since they start later, but they still have their reset days on Tuesdays. Well, the point is, it sounds lame, and it sounds like a lot of trouble. Ian has a point on the race not being called an esport, because it really isn't what we'd call fair. It's not a race between skilled players on template characters, it's the characters and teams that were carefully engineered over weeks and months of planning. It's a community event that makes the most of what's given, and there's a certain purity, knowing that evil Activision hasn't made a move to disrupt that, so use that as your takeaway. With the Mythic race being streamed in public, it leaves the embarrassment of bugs all out in the open for hundreds of thousands of spectators to see. I do like the Mythic-only phases because it brings that element of surprise that we all get to share with these top teams. With Blizzard acknowledging how much more impactful these bugs are, not just to these players, but for all of us watching shit hit the fan, I'm looking forward to faster responses from Blizzard and, more importantly, bug-free encounters. And finally, one last kick to a dead horse, the idea of the 8.3 ending. From the beginning of this patch to the final post-game cutscene after the infamous cinematic, all of that was meant to frame us, the champions of Azeroth, as the shining star that saved the world, even if we missed a few details. I'm still not all that dazzled by how things turned out in 8.3, but this is also kind of a choose your bitching adventure. Think back to the previous endgame cinematics, where our accomplishments were more or less pushed aside so that the more well-known characters who were just watching ended up taking up the spotlight. Like, dude, you started this mess. But anyway, I appreciate they wanting to give a nod to the champion and give us this cool moment. We just could have done with a bit more follow-up, like how the other characters that we've interacted with throughout this expansion were also affected by our actions. So now I'm just wondering how the Shadowlands ending is going to work out. I don't know, maybe we'll get a first-person perspective of us impaling Sylvanas in the throat, or a slow dance to Disney music. Moving on to a couple of quick bits, in case you didn't learn already, the most important rewards from the 8.3 factions, the rank 3 essence upgrades, have thankfully been moved from the exalted tier down to the revered tier. So you people who've been whoring yourselves out on dailies are more than ready to go pick up those rank 3s, so go, you know, whatever. Also, a second Warcraft-related book has been recently announced. Unlike Rising Shadows, which is the book coming in July by the very Twitter-sassy Madeline Rue, World of Warcraft Exploring Azeroth, the Eastern Kingdoms is a book with way too many colons. It's not Warcraft Chronicles 4, as in, it's less information that you would see ripped onto Wowpedia, but there's more visuals that you'll see ripped onto Wowhead. But I'm interested in learning more about not just the lands that we've explored, but the items that we've collected, and not collected. Also, this is just a book on one continent. What about Kalimdor? What about Northrend, Pandaria, the Broken Isles, Zandalar, Kultiris, Draenor, and Draenor? This could be very cool. A very in-depth look at the World of Warcraft from some clearly biased perspectives for fun. Let's move on to WoW Classic news, where the next phase of content has been fully unleashed, not unlike bowling pins ready to be knocked over at the slightest touch. Blackwing Lair opened up on Wednesday to a ravenous classic player base, armed to the teeth with gear earned from Molten Core and the Honor System. A while back I asked out loud whether the raid would be measured in hours or minutes. And it turns out that I was wrong on both accounts. It had to be measured in seconds, with the top 2 guilds downing Nefarian simultaneously, and 3rd place guild Apes finishing 9 seconds later. Not to mention the actual clear time, these measurements make it look like a freaking Mythic Plus competition. Completing a brand new old raid in less than an hour is quite a feat. But you might be thinking, okay, of course the top guilds could blaze through this. They've probably been doing this on private servers for years, and they have. But it also speaks volumes when nearly 400 guilds have cleared Blackwing Lair under 3 hours. And as of this screenshot taken on Friday, well over 900 guilds across the regions have at least cleared the instance. Now, this is great. This is the clear message that a lot of people are playing the game. We can't get mad about that, right? It also speaks to how much more sophisticated WoW players have become when it comes to optimizing not just gear, but rotations, synergies, and I guess even internet connection speeds. We've come a long way from getting away from that guy with the bomb. I recall complaints about WoW's raids over time becoming less epic because you need to have classes with immunity soaks, you need to class stack, there's too much personal responsibility and more. But if the game didn't challenge us more over time, if the philosophies of 2004 really dragged on all the way to 2020, how well would this game have held up? Back to the actual news though, straight up, Blackwing Lair got stomped and, gosh, a rehashed cinematic trailer and no endgame cutscene. Way to be lazy, Blizz. We're not even done with the first week of its release, and next week won't see the release of Mythic Blackwing Lair, so this is it for WoW Classic, at least for now. The only thing to do now is overgear for Zul'Gurub, which is going to come next, and then AQ. But I bet the race to AQ will at least be slightly more interesting, because entire servers will be working as a unit to stockpile and turn in materials for the war effort. No doubt that this farming has already been going on for a while already, but we'll see how well this pays off in the coming months, or weeks if people are being that impatient. This should be really exciting, watching the classic streams, running macros to turn in cloth. Riveting. The last bit of news is about what's not on the news currently. So far, there's been very little sign that the Shadowlands alpha has started beyond whatever's going on behind closed doors at Blizzard. The reasonable speculation going around is that it'll start after all 4 Ny'alotha wings have opened up, which will be, I think, after March 10th. But consider the BFA Alpha had started a few weeks after Antorus fully opened up, which coincidentally was also when patch 735 was released. So should the alpha start according to an LFR release schedule, which to me is kind of arbitrary, or after a patch is launched? I said last week that I speculate Shadowlands release date will be sometime during September. So what about the alpha? Will it be pushed back a month the same way the actual release will? Because by this estimate, Shadowlands will have 1 more month of development than BFA did, although keep in mind that that's a really gross oversimplification of how game dev works. But if so, I would be happy to see a bit more time put into delivering a strong expansion, and just as important, polish and ironing out the bugs, the 1,000 cuts that always threatens to mess with launch hype. So that's going to be it for me today, but stay tuned. Over this weekend, I'm going to do some commentary on my first 2-mask run of Orgrimmar. Ooh, exciting! But I bet you want to see mask runs of Stormwind more, because Stormwind is a nightmare by comparison. You folks at home and on the toilet watching are true legends for making it to the end, and I am grateful. But please don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. We'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.